You see, I'm a simple college student living alone in an apartment. I was very enthusiastic about the release of Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver here in the States. I purposely locked myself out of all media and the internet aside from school purposes. That means no 4chan, no /v/, no Bulbapedia, etc. As I was busy with the school year and being poor at the time, I wasn't able to buy Soul Silver at its launch date. After my school year ended, I ordered Soul Silver on Amazon. However, it would take weeks for it to arrive. I decided that during that time, I would replay my Crystal version on my Game Boy Color. However, I realized that long ago, my mom threw it away because I told her the save went dead and I was very upset about it then. She also threw away my Silver version, so all I have is my Game Boy Color. As such, I set out to GameStop and bought a used Silver version, as it's the only Pokemon game left that they have for Game Boy Color. $10, fairly cheap. I went home and started it up for a nostalgia trip. However, that's when things started getting bizarre, and most likely the reason why you're watching this. The Game Freak logo started up as normal, but it froze there. I thought the cart was just errored or something, so I turned it off and on. The same thing happened. I tried pressing A and start over and over, and all the buttons. Eventually, the logo vanished, and there was a black screen for about 5 seconds. Suddenly, rather than going to the usual menu screen, I was already in the game of a previous save file, which was odd, as I was expecting all these carts to have been wiped by poor battery. Either way, I wasn't complaining, as I would have chosen the continue option to see what the previous guy did anyways. First off, I checked the trainer information. His name was just ... He didn't have much originality. I checked the profile, and apparently he had 999 hours and 99 minutes put into the game, with all 16 badges, 99,999.9 Pokédollars, and all 251 Pokemon on the Pokedex. Seeing as he apparently had Mew and Celebi logged also, I'm guessing he either used Game Genie or was a really hardcore Pokemon player back then. I checked his Pokemon to see what a badass team he has. To my surprise, I saw 5 unknowns, and the 6th one named Hurry. I'm thinking that this must be some cruel joke by the person who last played this game, but I decided to check the profiles of the Pokemon anyway. As expected, they were different letters of unknown, all level 5. I was a bit shaky with my unknown alphabet at the time, but I identified the word spelled out to be leave. As for the 6th Pokemon, it turned out to be a Cyndaquil. Mind you, this was before there were individualized Pokemon icons. The Cyndaquil looked normal, but it was level 5 with only 1 HP left, with only 2 attacks, Leer and Flash. I don't know why his name Hurry, but at the time, I just disregarded it. The most eerie thing was that despite my volume being at max, none of the Pokemon had their usual cries, just pure silence. Having enough of the team, I closed it. I was parked at what appeared to be a room inside Bellsprout Tower. However, for some reason, there were no NPCs around. Even more eerie was the pillar in the middle didn't move at all, as if it was leaning on one side. There was no music at all, and there was no exit ladder, or at least I thought there wasn't. I walked around for a few minutes, but can't seem to find a way out. This was certainly not a room I've seen in Bellsprout Tower before. I tried checking my items for an escape rope, but the bag was completely empty. There wasn't any wild Pokemon either. Finally, I managed to find a ladder, which turned out to be behind the pillar. The screen turned black and the music finally started playing. I had a sudden chill as I recognized the melody. I heard that theme you hear when you listen to the radio in Alph Ruins, where the unknown are at. I immediately realized that it wasn't a loading translation, but rather, I was in a dark room and would need flash. Before I took care of that though, I'd immediately checked my Poke Gear to change the radio to something more pleasant, but it turns out there was no radio card, or even a phone, nor time cards. There was only a map card in which Gold, from earlier, I will call him Gold from now on, was just walking in a midst of black. I recall that Cyndaquil has flash, so I turned off my Poke Gear and made my Cyndaquil use flash. I didn't see the message saying hurry used flash or anything like that. The room just became lit, just like that, and I soon regretted it. The room was chilling blood red, with linear gray path heading south. The ladder I used to go up and down was not there at all. I had no choice but to head south. The screen got darker every 20 steps I made, until finally I made it to the end, which appears to be a sign. I read the sign, which said, "Turn back now." Suddenly, I was asked to answer yes or no, but there was no question asked. I choose yes, as I do not know what I was asking, and then the screen went black, making a ladder climb sound. The unknown radio music stops, and a few seconds was replaced with a not as creepy Poke Flute radio music. I was in another dark room, but I held my breath and used flash again. Suddenly, it said, "Hurry has fainted," which was odd, since I recall that there was no status conditions like poison on him, and I clearly wasn't in a battle. I checked my Pokemon quickly, and suddenly, he's no longer in my party. In fact, after a bit of investigating, none of my Pokemon are there. Instead, all replaced with level 10 unknown. And I did the same thing as I did before and spelled out the unknown. My team of unknowns spelled, "He died." Either way, after that creepy change, the room lit to reveal myself in a very small room that appears to be only 4 squares big. The walls of the room were gray bricks, as if it was inside of something that was hollowed out. Outside that room appears to be a bunch of graves similar to the ones in Pokemon Red and Blue. I walked around that small room for a bit and pressed A, but nothing happened. I've already concluded that this was clearly a hacked game and some sadistic freak sold it to GameStop. However, my curiosity kept me going. I checked the trainer profile of ... again, only to find out that his sprite of Gold was missing his arms. He also seemed to appear less smug, but rather seemed more sad and empty in a way that I do not know how to describe. For some reason, it also now said he has 24 badges, which is clearly impossible. After a few minutes of aimless wandering, my character suddenly spun and did the escape rope spinning animation. Instead of flying up though, my character spun downward slowly, as if shrinking. After that screen, the music stopped. After finally landing to the overworld, sprite of Gold is colored differently now. Instead of his usual red colors, he dons. He appears completely white now, including his skin. It's as if he came straight from the colorless Game Boy games, placed into a colored background of a Game Boy Color. I checked his profile, and now, while now is as white as his overworld sprite, he lost his legs and what appears to be bloody tears from his eyes. It also says he has 32 badges, which now starts to disturb me as this number change seems to represent something important. I also checked my Pokemon, which this time contains 5 unknowns and a level 100 Celebi without a nickname. The unknowns this time leveled 15 and spelled out dying. I checked the Celebi's profile. It was a shiny Celebi, except there was only half the sprite, 1 leg, 1 arm, 1 eye. It only has 1 attack, Perish Song. The area I was in itself was Sprout Tower, with an immobile pillar as before, except everything is apparently red now. I walked north for what felt like forever, eventually finally encountering some generic men and women NPC. They were all lined up to the side, just facing a long, slantish pillar in the middle. They were also white, and nothing happens when I try to speak to them. I kept going north until eventually the pillar finally appears chopped off, with transparent red in that spot. I went up, and without even pressing A, I suddenly and finally engage in a battle. The music starts again, which it sounds like the unknown radio music again, but played backwards. Gold's battle back sprite matches his front one with bloody eyes, white skin, and lack of arms, while Red's sprite was the same as before in gold, silver, and crystal, except transparent. The text simply said, "Wants to battle," as if he has no name. And both of us only have one Pokemon each, which is weird. I swore I had 6 with unknowns. My shiny Celebi came out, conveniently with a half sprite for the back also. The shiny noise and animation was different, as it made sound like multiple screech attacks used consecutively. Red sent out a seemingly normal Pikachu, except he is at level 255, and his sprite seemed sad and had tears in his eyes. Rather than usual fight item Pokemon run menu, I was only given the option to use attacks. Since Celebi only has one, I chose it. Naturally, since Pikachu was level 255, he went first. Pikachu used Curse, lowering his speed and increasing his stats. I'm not even sure if Pikachu could use Curse. Celebi used Perish Song. In 3 turns, both Pokemon get KO'd. Not like I have a choice. At this point, I didn't even go back to the fight menu, as the battle just continued without me. Also note that there were no animations at all for some reason. Pikachu used Flail, which didn't do much damage despite his level, and Boost, as his health was maxed. Celebi used Perish Song. Nothing happened as it's already used. Pikachu used Frustration, which did a shit ton of damage, knocking Celebi to less than 10 HP. Celebi used Pain Split, which surprised me. Celebi didn't even have that attack in the first place. Now Celebi and Pikachu have about 150 HP. Pikachu used Mean Look. Not like it did anything. As expected, due to the effects of Perish Song, my Celebi fainted. Except the text, it said, "Celebi has died." And instead of the ordinary drop off the screen animation, the Celebi's back sprite had vanished. For some reason, the Pikachu was still up, even though Perish Song, and it didn't count as my loss. Pikachu used one more different attack, beyond the 5 attack limit. Pikachu used Destiny Bond. Afterwards, it says Pikachu has died, with a slow fade-out animation. Apparently, I was the winner, as the transparent red sprite showed up saying, dot 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 dot. At this point, I just freaked out, as the transparent red sprite was suddenly beheaded, leaving nothing but a transparent body. Then, the battle ended at that point and faded out along with the music. I'm back in the overworld, with another change to Gold's sprite. He's now transparent as Red's overworld sprite. I quickly checked Gold's profile, where this time the only thing remains of his is his head with transparent skin. His head was zoomed in a bit, showing a black void in his eyes. Now, it stated that he now has 40 badges. I then blacked out and checked my Pokemon. There were all level 20 shiny unknown, which spelled out to read, "No more." I was at what I now know as the end. There was apparently no music playing, but for some reason, I still felt like something was there that could not be heard. I was back in my room in New Bark Town. Maybe finally I get to play this game properly, but who am I kidding? I knew that sadistic fuck must have done something. I walked around the room to interact with things, as I'm a bit afraid to go down the stairs to see what was awaiting down there. Note, I said walk, as while the background was moving, Gold was not moving his transparent limbs at all while doing so, just floating like a ghost you see in Diamond and Pearl. As expected, the radio computer, and TV did not work, so I had no choice but to go downstairs. I ended up in the same lower level room of my house. Everything appears normal, except my mom isn't home. After failing to interact with anything in the room, I decide to go outside. To my surprise, that door leading outside to the south didn't work, and instead, I just walked straight through it to a void. I continue moving south to see what the fuck was going on. My house vanished as I head south into the void. It was creepy, as when I entered the void, the outline of Gold's transparent sprite turned white to contrast with the pitch black. Eventually, I reached a white area, and Gold's sprite turned black and transparent again. I continued south without thinking of stopping at all. After a long trek south, I finally entered something. It was Gold's regular sprite. I talked to it. He said, "Goodbye, forever," and vanished. As that happened, it said, "?????use nightmare," which at this point, I would not deny being possible. Gold did another escape rope animation, spinning slowly downwards like before. Now, I'm back in a small hollowed out room surrounded by graves earlier. Or, at least, I say I was back there. There was no sprite anymore. I tried to walk around, but nothing moved, not even the wall bumping noise. I checked the trainer profile, with absolutely no Gold sprite left. It said I have 0 badges, and all the pictures of the Johto gym leaders at the bottom were replaced with skulls. I checked my Pokemon, which were all level 25 unknown. As expected, it spelled out the phrase that I dared to read. I'm dead. As soon as I went back to the overworld, the room I supposedly was in, then covered with the same blocks as the wall. I then figured exactly what that room was when the final text was read R.I.P. The room was a big grave surrounded by other graves. Gold had already been dead. He died presumably a few years after defeated Red. He was a young trainer who, despite his efforts in collecting so many badges and attempts at becoming a Pokemon Master, was still unable to avoid the inevitable fate of death. His efforts were eventually forgotten by the next generation. I was unable to escape from that text no matter what I pressed. I tried resetting the game, and the same thing happened, at which I finally decided to give up on that horrible nightmare. After that experience, I will never look at the gimmick unknown the same way again. They say only the first generation have folk tale legends, but the second generations have shown me how unpleasant the truth can be. I eventually enjoyed Soul Silver immensely, but I can't unthink what that rigged game has told me.